Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we are going to pick a fight with a poster. You know the one I'm talking about. It probably hanging in a guidance counselor's office somewhere, maybe your break room, in a company that hasn't, updated its decor since 1995. It's the one with the kitten, looking absolutely terrified, just clinging for dear life to a tree branch. And in these big, bold letters, it says, "Hang in there."
Ah, yes. The ultimate commandment of modern life.
It is. It's the sacred text of our whole culture. I mean, we are fed this narrative from the moment we enter kindergarten. Grit, hustle, persistence.
Never give up.
Exactly. We're told that stopping is the ultimate failure. That the only difference between a winner and a loser is that the winner just kept holding on when their muscles were screaming and, well, the loser let go.
It's that ethos. It's baked into our movies, our biographies, our LinkedIn feeds. It's just the water we swim in.
But today, we're digging into a fascinating document that looks at that kitten and basically says, let go of the branch. We're analyzing a text called Silence as Baseline and the Principle of Non-Continuation. And honestly, it's a little destabilizing. It asks this radical question. What if stopping isn't failure? What if it's actually a sophisticated, high-level life strategy?
It is destabilizing. And I think we have to set the context right away. Because when you hear stopping as a strategy, your brain, it instinctively goes to laziness.
Right. Yeah.
You think of someone flaking out, sitting on the couch, watching TV, just checking out.
And a couch potato defense.
Yeah.
I'm not lazy, I'm just non-continuing.
Exactly. But this document we're covering, Silence as Baseline, it's emphatic that this is not a manifesto for laziness. It frames this habit of stopping, this non-continuation, as a rigorous damage minimization strategy.
Damage minimization.
Yeah. It's about preserving the integrity of this system, not abandoning responsibility.
That phrase, damage minimization, that really struck me, because it implies that forcing yourself to continue when something is wrong isn't just hard work, it's causing actual damage.
That is the core premise. So the mission of this deep dive is to really unpack a life strategy that replaces that standard model of, effort, persistence, success with a new model of mismatch detection.
Mismatch detection.
We're looking at a way of living where the goal isn't to reach some summit or get a plaque, but to maintain a specific internal state, what the text calls silence.
Okay, but before we get into the mechanics of it, we have to touch on the disclaimer in sections here, because I can just hear a listener thinking, wait, is this just depression? Is this burnout?
It's a crucial distinction to make right out of the gate. The text is incredibly clear. This lack of motivation or this tendency to stop is not depression. It's not illness. It's not exhaustion.
Okay.
In clinical depression, you often cannot move. You're paralyzed. But in this framework, the person is perfectly capable of moving.
Yeah.
They have energy, capacity. They just stop moving when the alignment breaks.
So it's functional, not pathological. It's a reaction driven by clarity, not by a fog.
Precisely. It's described as a natural halt caused by misalignment between action and internal state. Think of it less like a car running out of gas and more like a car's collision avoidance system slamming on the brakes because it sees a wall.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's look at the person who operates this way. Section 1 describes a fundamental disposition. And I have to say, this personality type seems almost alien to how we're raised.
How so?
The text says, this person has a weak drive towards success, recognition, or self-establishment.
Which sounds like an insult in our current economy, doesn't it? I mean, we're wired to want to become someone, to build a brand, a legacy.
To get the blue check mark.
Yeah.
Even if you aren't an influencer, you still want to be, the guy in accounting who got promoted. You want a narrative. You want to be the main character.
Right. But for this disposition, there's no strong identification with that story. They don't really care about the story of I am a successful person. The text says their action is state-driven, not ego-driven.
Let's break that down. State-driven versus ego-driven. Because I think most of us assume we're state-driven, but we're probably not. What's the difference in practice?
Think of it like a GPS. An ego-driven person types in a destination, say, VP of Marketing. The GPS calculates the route and they just follow it. Even if the road is bumpy or the car is overheating, they keep driving because the destination is the whole point.
Eyes on the prize.
Exactly. The ego needs to arrive. It needs to say, I did it. But a state-driven person, there's no destination input. The GPS isn't looking at the map. It's monitoring the engine metrics right now.
So how does this feel? Is the ride smooth?
Is the engine humming correctly? Is there internal silence? If the answer is yes, they keep driving. The moment it's no, the moment there's a rattle or a warning light, they pull over.
Even if they're 5 miles from the finish line?
The distance to the finish line is, to them, irrelevant data. The only relevant data is the integrity of the current state.
Which leads to this really fascinating trade-off. The text says, for this mindset, failure doesn't lead to self-denial. They don't beat themselves up if they quit.
Right.
But on the flip side, victory doesn't bring much of a reward either.
That's the cost of doing business this way. If you detach your identity from the outcome, if you don't care about being the winner, then winning doesn't give you that dopamine hit. You don't get the king of the world feeling.
So it's a flatter emotional landscape, at least when it comes to outcomes.
Regarding external outcomes, yes. You aren't riding that roller coaster of I'm a genius one day and I'm a total failure the next. You're just monitoring alignment.
And if the internal state says no,
The body stops. To an outsider, it looks like quitting. It looks like you gave up right before the big breakthrough. But inside the system, it's just a signal processing event. Signal. Misalignment. Action. Stop.
it's almost mechanical.
It really is, even though it can look so emotional or impulsive from the outside.
Okay, so this brings us to a huge practical question. If this person stops whenever things feel off, and they don't care about success, do they just sit on the floor and stare at a wall? How does anything get done?
Well, Section 2 clarifies this. It says desire does exist. They aren't zombies.
Right.
No, not robots. Desire is there, but its role is completely reframed. The source uses a metaphor I love. Desire is a temporary ignition mechanism, a test engine.
A test engine, so it's not the fuel?
No, in the standard grit model, desire is the fuel. You have to hoard it, keep the fire burning. You listen to motivational podcasts to refill the tank, but here, desire is just the spark plug. It gets the car moving so you can see how it drives.
So an interest pops up, hey, I want to learn pottery or I'll try coding, and the action begins and you just see what happens.
You start the car, you drive a few blocks. But here's the pivot. The text says that after a little while, a judgment naturally occurs. A thought like, this is unnecessary, or this clouds the state.
And usually when we have those thoughts, like 3 weeks into pottery class, when the clay keeps collapsing, we treat that as a weakness. We say, I'm just being lazy, or I need to push through this.
Right. We treat losing desire as a failure of character. We think something is wrong with us. But this strategy flips that on its head. It says, I'm quoting here, the disappearance of desire is not treated as failure. It is treated as completion of function.
Completion of function. I highlighted that 3 times. That's a heavy concept. Can we unpack that?
Think of it like casting a key in a lock. You slide the key in, that's the desire. You try to turn it, it doesn't turn. Do you stand there for 10 years pushing harder, screaming at the key?
No, you take the key out and say, wrong key.
Exactly. You wouldn't say, I failed at opening the door. You'd say, I successfully determined this is the wrong key. In this framework, desire functions to test the lock. If the desire fades, the test is complete. The answer is no. The system worked. You aren't quitting. You are acknowledging the data.
So if I pick up a guitar, play for a month, realize it's making me stressed and unhappy, and then I put it down. I didn't fail at becoming a musician. I succeeded in testing the guitar.
The test is complete. Next subject. You move on, without baggage.
But how do we know the difference? This is the part I think listeners will struggle with. How do you distinguish between this is a genuine misalignment and, this is just hard work and I'm uncomfortable? Because everything worth doing is hard sometimes.
That is the million-dollar question, and Section 3 talks about this mismatch detection system. The text focuses heavily on somatic meaning physical sensations, not intellectual arguments. It warns you against trying to rationalize it.
So what are the signals?
One major indicator is that motivation doesn't just wane slowly, it drops off a cliff.
The sudden drop, like a power outage.
Yes, and meaning becomes thin. The text uses a great phrase, the body no longer participates.
Oof. I think we've all felt that. Where you're physically doing the task, you're typing the report, but your body just feels heavy, reluctant.
Like you are dragging yourself through mud. The action shifts from feeling natural to obligatory. You're doing it because you have to, or you said you would. The energy isn't flowing out of you. You're having to force energy into the task.
And there's a specific trigger mentioned that I think is going to resonate with and probably annoy a lot of people. It's the money trap.
Oh, yes. This is a massive warning in the text. It says, the moment an action is justified by money or evaluation or social success, the center of action shifts. It moves from state to calculation.
From state to calculation. So instead of how does this feel right now, It becomes, what will this get me in the future?
And for this specific disposition, that shift is fatal to the action. As soon as you start doing it for the money or for the applause, the internal alignment just disconnects. Mismatch detected.
That's so tough, though. I mean, we live in a capitalist reality. You have to pay rent.
hmm
Is the text saying you shouldn't have a job?
It's not saying you shouldn't earn money. It's more subtle. It suggests that using money as the primary driver or the sole justification will trigger a shutdown for this personality type. It makes the action feel artificial.
It's the difference between I love coding and hey, they pay me for it versus I hate coding, but the salary is great, so I'll suffer.
Precisely. The second one introduces calculation, and for this person, calculation feels like a violation of the state. It triggers the alarm. It's like a pebble in your shoe. You can walk on it, sure, but every step reminds you something is wrong.
And most of us are taught to ignore the pebble. Just keep walking, you'll get used to it.
But this strategy says, stop walking, take out the pebble.
So when that alarm goes off, what happens? We arrive at section 4, the principle of non-continuation.
And the core logic here is brutally simple. What cannot be continued is not continued.
That sounds like a tautology.
Right.
Like water is wet. Obviously, if you can't continue, you don't.
But look deeper at the word cannot. It's not, I choose not to continue. It's, it cannot be continued. This isn't a weakness of will. The source argues that for this individual, a misaligned state literally cannot be prolonged by intention.
So willpower. It just doesn't work here. It's not a tool they can even access.
It's ineffective. This mindset rejects the common self-help tools. Self-persuasion, come on, you can do this, or endurance, just grit your teeth, or thinking about the future reward. This strategy explicitly rejects all that.
It finds them intolerable.
Yes, it sees them as lies. Continuing in a mismatched state feels wrong, almost physically repulsing, like trying to eat when you're already nauseous. You can put the food in your mouth, but your body just rejects it.
And this brings us back to that damage minimization idea. By stopping early, you're preventing a crash.
Right. By obeying that inability to continue, you avoid accumulating resentment, trauma, self-blame. Think about how many people burn out because they forced a mismatched path for 10 years.
They wake up at 45, have the house and the car, and they absolutely hate their lives. They're just bitter.
Exactly. They've calcified the misalignment. This strategy avoids that. You quit the job at month 3, not year 10. You stay light. You avoid the damage.
But, and here's the huge collision point, this puts you on a direct crash course with the rest of the world. Because if you quit everything at month 3 because it feels off, you're probably not becoming CEO.
No. And that is the conflict.
Hmm?
Society operates on 2 big assumptions. 1, correct paths are reproducible. If I followed these steps to success, you can too. And 2, persistence yields results.
Stick with it, 10,000 hours. Trust the process.
But the source has this counter-argument that I find so refreshing. It says, success may be reproducible, but motivation is not.
Wow. Let's just pause on that. Success is reproducible, motivation is not.
Meaning, just because the steps to become a brain surgeon are clearly laid out reproducible, that doesn't mean my motivation to walk those steps can be manufactured.
You can't just 3D print the desire to do the work.
You cannot. And in this framework, reproducibility is trusted less than the internal state. Even if a path is guaranteed to make you rich, if it kills your internal state, it's abandoned. The guarantee isn't worth the cost.
So how does this person view their lack of, traditional success? Do they feel like a loser when they see their friends getting promoted?
The text reframes this beautifully. It says success was not failed, but not selected.
Not selected. That sounds so much more active.
It is. It wasn't that the person tried their hardest to be a social success and failed. It was that the path to social success triggered the mismatch alarm, so they got off the path. Social success was just one route among many, not a mandatory destination.
I love that. It's not, I couldn't make it to the top of the mountain. It's, I started hiking up, realized I hate high altitudes, and went to the beach instead.
Exactly. And the beach is nice. And you aren't standing on the beach looking up at the mountain with envy. You're just enjoying the beach.
So let's look at the long game. What does life look like after 20 or 30 years of this? Does it just look like a pile of unfinished projects? Section 6 talks about sedimentation.
This is where we see the long-term result. It's not random chaos. The text describes it as an unintentional yet consistent filtering.
Filtering, like panning for gold.
In a way, but it's a subtractive process. Imagine a riverbed. You pour all your experiences, jobs, hobbies, relationships into the river. The mismatch detection is the current. It just washes away anything that's light or fake or misaligned.
It washes away the silt.
Yes. And what's left, what sediments at the bottom, is the stuff that didn't trigger the alarm, the things that stuck. Not because you forced them to stay, but because they didn't give you a reason to eject them.
So you don't find your passion by looking for it. You find your life by rejecting everything that isn't it.
Perfectly put. You carve the statue by chipping away everything that isn't the statue.
And Section 8 brings in this really poetic idea of alignment with an early ideal. It suggests this filtering process isn't random.
Right. It wasn't a plan. The 20-year-old didn't say, I will live exactly like this at 50. But that 20-year-old had a filter, a sense of, this way of living is wrong for me. And by ruthlessly applying that filter for decades, they end up in a life that matches that early intuition.
They protected the seed.
And that leads us to the title of the document, Silence as Baseline.
What does that mean exactly? Silence as baseline.
Is it about having a quiet house?
It's metaphorical. It's the resulting state, a stable, quiet internal state that emerged without discipline or self-denial. It's not the silence of emptiness, it's the silence of no conflict.
No conflict because you've removed all the sources of mismatch.
Yes. The proof that the system worked is in the emotional residue.
Residue, you mean what's left over?
Or rather, the lack of it. The text argues that if this system failed, if quitting was the wrong choice, there would be regret. There would be unresolved desire. You'd be thinking, I really should have stuck with acting.
But for this individual, those feelings are just absent. That's the claim. There's an absence of regret. The system worked because the internal state is clear. There's no aggression, no self-negation, just this silence as baseline.
It's almost Zen, but arrived at through a very different path. Not through meditation, but through selection in the real world.
Through rigorous, almost ruthless, non-continuation of the unnecessary. It's a very active form of passivity, if that makes sense.
It does. It's active defense of your peace.
So what does this all mean for us, for the person listening who might be grinding their teeth on the way to a job they hate? The outro of this document sums it up with a line that honestly gave me chills. The one-sentence summary.
It is the climax of the whole argument.
Yeah.
The line is, I did not fail to succeed. I succeeded in not quietly failing.
I succeeded in not quietly failing. That's powerful.
It completely flips the definition of failure. Usually we think failure is loud, it's crashing the car, getting fired. This introduces the concept of quiet failure.
And quiet failure is the dangerous one. It's succeeding at the wrong thing. It's staying in the relationship that drains you for 5 years too long. It's climbing the corporate ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall.
Quiet failure is betraying your internal state every single day, just to keep the external story going.
Precisely. And this strategy, this silence as baseline, is the victory against that. It prioritizes the internal state over external evaluation. It says, I protected my peace, even if it looked like I was quitting to everyone else.
It's a validation of a different kind of life, one that isn't loud, isn't celebrated on magazine covers, but is deeply, authentically aligned.
And in a world of constant noise, that silence is a pretty significant achievement.
So I want to leave our listener with a thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about quitting, about stopping, and it's scary. We're trained to fear the stop, to fear the gap in the resume.
We are. It feels like death to the ego.
So think about the things you are forcing yourself to continue right now. A project, a habit, a career path. If you stopped, would you be failing? Or would you be completing a function? Would you be giving up? Or would you be detecting a mismatch?
It's a scary question, but asking it might be the start of finding your own baseline.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, we'll see you next time.